Decepticoaster is the signature roller coaster at Universal Studios Beijing. If this layout looks familiar to my US viewers, it should, because this is a near clone of the Incredible Hulk coaster at Islands of Adventure. But note I said near clone, not exact clone. There are some key differences in the track, trains, and theme. Do these help or hurt the ride experience? I will explain in this review. Islands of Adventure opened at the Universal Orlando Resort in 1999. From day one, it featured one of the most iconic rides in the world in the Incredible Hulk coaster. This is a Bolliger Mabillard sit-down looping coaster with 7 inversions. This attraction has proven to be a smashing success. Actually, dare I say Hulk smashing success. It is a reliable, high-capacity crowd pleaser. In 2014, Universal announced a deal to construct a new park in Beijing. Early concept art revealed in 2015 showed a roller coaster resembling the Hulk. That ride would go on to become Decepticoaster. Like Hulk, it too would be an opening day attraction. Universal Studios Beijing opened in 2021. Decepticoaster is located towards the back of the park, specifically in the Transformers Metro Base area. This ride dominates the land with its size. It adds so much kinetic energy whenever it cycles, as you hear the constant screams of delight. It is impossible to miss the Decepticon Driller launch tunnel. It is visually cool anyway with its mechanized appearance, but you hear revving metal whenever a launch occurs, so all eyes will gravitate towards it when trains are fired out of it into the zero-G roll. Then the rest of the first half is highly visible as well. Much like Hulk, the back half of the ride is almost entirely hidden from view though. You can only really see this from one part of the queue line. The ride features a purplish-gray track. The coaster looks sleek and solid by day, but it looks absolutely fantastic by night. It is illuminated in a purple hue. Unfortunately, I never saw the ride cycle at night. What will quickly become apparent from my footage is that I visited on a downright miserable day. There specifically was a yellow warning for rain. Beijing received a whopping 3.5 inches of rain the day I visited. It was basically pouring all day long. I knew from experience that Hulk could not operate in some rain. That ride can close whenever the launch tires get too wet, causing them to lose grip on the train. But I had heard that Chinese parks in general do not operate rides in rain. I quickly learned that was the case with Universal Beijing. It was just a light drizzle in the morning, so I camped by the attraction for an hour, anxiously hoping the rain would briefly stop. I did not want to miss the ride if it only opened briefly. The rain eventually stopped for maybe 45 minutes tops, and to the park's credit, they got the coaster open, even though it was only going to be a short window it would be available. I was able to get 3 quick laps before it closed. The ride also briefly reopened for 20 minutes in the afternoon, but I was not able to get over there before they closed the queue. From what I saw at this park, when a light rain starts, they will close the coaster's queue. They will then try to cycle through those guests already in the queue. I believe all the coasters, but Decepticoaster for sure, will close completely once the heavy rain starts. From research prior to my trip, Decepticoaster seemed to have manageable waits most days. Per QTimes.com, the average wait hovers around the 25-minute mark, which is more than fair for a ride at a park as large as Universal. This on average is shorter than the park's premier dark rides, and more interestingly, all 3 of the park's other coasters. I don't think this is due to a lack of popularity. Decepticoaster just has a high throughput, particularly compared to the park's other coasters. Each train sees a max of 32 riders, as they are comprised of 8 rows of 4. On the day I visited, the coaster had just 2 trains in use. I have seen that in the Hulk as well on quieter days. Decepticoaster should be able to operate with 3 trains like Hulk, and I imagine they do that in busier days. This ride's queue starts outdoors. You wrap around the queue building and have some switchbacks. There is absolutely no theming during this point, just some fun views of the coaster, albeit blocked by tarps. Eventually this leads to a locker area. There, you have free lockers available for your belongings. Absolutely no bags nor items in your pockets can ride with you. I believe glasses are okay though, unlike a lot of Asian parks. You then must pass through a metal detector to enter the indoor queue. From what I saw, the park does not film much of this. Most of the queuing is done outdoors while you have your belongings. When you disembark, You return to the exact same locker area. These lockers are not double-sided. I believe the safeguard in place to prevent people from riding a second time is that the lockers are timed. This is set by employees based on how long the indoor queue is. Now I am curious what happens if the front row queue, which is physically quite long, becomes full, because it may be possible in some instances to ride multiple times in any other row before you board in the front. I also wonder how they handle someone who does not need a locker. For example, someone who left all their belongings with a non-rider. With this setup, it seems like they could go right back to the indoor queue. Is it purely on the honor system? Because I know if a system like this existed at a US park, many people would try to exploit it. If you do visit on a busier day, this ride is included in the Express Pass. This is an extremely pricey skip-the-line pass, but it can save a lot of time. After going to the locker area, the park uses facial recognition linked to your express ticket to send you into a separate queue. This routes you to the load platform. It is also worth noting this park used to have single rider lines on a few attractions, but they have not been used as of late. I suspect Decepticoaster probably had one due to its 4-across seating, so if this becomes available in the future, this too could save a lot of time if you're solo or don't mind splitting up from your group. I do wish you spent a bit more time queuing in the themed indoor portion. Typically, you will walk right on through this. It looks sort of like the one in Hulk with a variety of monitors and a large cylinder in the center with some flashing lights, but I have no footage of it due to the loose article policy. At the end of the queue, you can enter a lane for the front row or all other rows. If you choose the latter, the crew will try to honor row requests if there's somewhere specific you want to sit, such as the back. I personally liked the back best. I thought the forces were a bit better than the other rows. The front was cool to try once for the view though. When this ride was announced, I was curious if they'd use B&M's newer floorless trains. They had not built a standard sit-down coaster in over a decade, but Decepticoaster indeed is a sit-down coaster like Hulk. However, the trains are different. Whereas Hulk has the older rigid over-the-shoulder restraints, Decepticoaster has the newer vest restraints like many of B&M's most recent coasters. There's a thick bar by your pelvis. Then there's a soft, stretchable piece securing your upper body. I personally think these restraints are an upgrade because it completely eliminates any chance of headbanging. I know it's possible to hit your head in one or two spots on Hulk during the quick transitions. With Decepticoaster, I don't think that would happen anyway because the transitions were modified, and the coaster is super smooth anyway, but it's nice having the extra peace of mind. Now I will run through the on-ride experience. I will try to compare each element to the Hulk as I go. Once secure, you turn slightly left out of the station. You'll immediately realize this ride has onboard audio. You'll hear the strum of an electric guitar that gets you amped up. You then slowly ascend a tire-propelled lift in a tunnel. There are screens around you that pulse and swirl with energy. The tires then rapidly spin, turning the lift into a launch. You are suddenly accelerated up to 40 miles per hour, or 64 kilometers per hour, in just 2 seconds. While this acceleration may not look like too much on paper, it is actually extremely intense because it's uphill and the train is fighting against gravity. It is one of my favorite launches between the power and theatrics. It is just as good as the one in The Incredible Hulk in my opinion. I was curious when this coaster was announced if the launch would use something other than tires. If you're unfamiliar with the history of the Hulk, back in the 1990s, B&M did not yet make launch coasters. They only agreed to fabricate the Hulk if Universal designed the launch themselves. Flash forward to the 2010s, and B&M now makes some LSM launch coasters, but Universal decided to repurpose the exact same launch system as the Hulk and Decepticoaster. The launch is immediately followed by a zero-G roll. This is where the differences begin. This element is ultra snappy in Hulk. It feels like you'll be ejected from the train between the laterals in airtime. On Decepticoaster, the zero-G roll is much more graceful. The whip is designed out. It now just offers some nice floater. It is still a very fun inversion, but is markedly less intense. Next is a Cobra roll. This is a hard grail for me on the Hulk. It is one of the most intense sequences of positive Gs in my opinion. Then the flips are also very whippy there. With Decepticoaster, You still get good G's in and out of the element, so I start to gray out here as well. The flips flare outwards and are more elongated, so they lack the snaps of the original. The second does have some pull, at least if you're in the back row though. Then there's a vertical loop. This offers solid positive G's, and you'll experience some pull through the second half if you're in the back rows. Hulk's loop exerts more positive G's in my opinion, as I believe it's because it's narrower. Decepticoaster then dives underground briefly. This tunnel looks nicer than the one on Hulk due to the rockwork, but it does lack the fog seen on Hulk. Next is a helix around the launch tunnel. This is an element that's better on Decepticoaster. It's a bit shorter, so you navigate it with more speed. The low point offers some good G's that I do not recall experiencing on Hulk. Then comes the fifth inversion. This officially is listed as a corkscrew in both rides. I think this is an accurate description for Hulk, but it feels more like a 0G roll in Decepticoaster. And I think this is another upgrade. This roll is very floaty. Then you're pulled downwards into a trench afterwards. Hulk's corkscrew is nice, but the most memorable part of it is the dive afterwards, which was retained on Decepticoaster. They just made the flip more exciting. Next is the second vertical loop. On Decepticoaster, this offers solid G's in the front and good G's in the back. Meanwhile, I think the G's are consistently good no matter where you sit in the Hulk. Again, I think the loop there is a bit narrower. Both rise and twist upwards, which is not too memorable. Then there's an S drop downwards. I recall this giving a tiny pop of airtime on Hulk. Decepticoaster's offered okay floater for me in the back row instead. You then turn upwards into the mid-course brake run. From this point forwards, the two rides felt pretty similar to me. The drop off the mid-course offers decent floater airtime in the back. Then you have the seventh and final inversion, a corkscrew. This is not particularly fast, so it offers some faint float, along with a little whip. You then have a mild turn. This merely changes your direction without adding any force, which is unfortunate. Then there's an upwards helix. This too is slow and relatively forceless. It only offers weak positive G's. You then hit the brakes. This is why I noticed one other con with Decepticoaster. The onboard audio is much quieter than that of Hulk. I struggle to hear it throughout much of the coaster. I could only hear it clearly during the slower parts. Compare that to the Hulk where the audio is much louder, so you can hear it start to finish. I think that high octane audio definitely gets your adrenaline flowing on Hulk, so it's a bummer it's missing here throughout much of the ride. You then return to the station, ending the experience. Decepticoaster is 4,150 feet, or 1,265 meters of track. This interestingly is 12% longer than Hulk. I was surprised the track length differed by that much when the layout seemed identical minus some profiling tweaks. But I noticed that Decepticoaster is listed with a max height of 122 feet, or 37 meters, which is 12 feet taller than that of Hulk, so maybe every element is just a bit taller along the way, which adds up. I think the pacing is similar between the two rides. Both have an action-packed first half that I love. The speed and inversions are great there. Those final few elements simply do not do much for me. Then Decepticoaster is a smoother experience. I was curious if it would have a rattle like several of B&M's newer coasters, but I am pleased to report it is extremely smooth. Hulk tracks fairly smoothly in my opinion as well, but it has a slight bite due to it being an older, more cycled ride, and it does have some fiercer transitions. I know some can come off that ride with a minor headache, especially if they hit their head on a transition or two. So what would I rate Decepticoaster? I would give this ride an 8 out of 10. This is a great coaster. It features an incredible launch. Then there are 7 lovely inversions. While they lack major whip, they have a blend of positive and negative G's. The first half is wonderfully paced and exciting. I just wish this coaster had a better finale. That second half is really weak. So do I prefer Decepticoaster or Hulk? I personally prefer the Hulk. I like that ride a bit more for the punchier inversions and louder audio, but Decepticoaster is not far behind, especially since it offers the more comfortable trains and tracking. I imagine anyone who finds Hulk a little uncomfortable or too intense would probably prefer Decepticoaster, so it may come down to personal preference. Those are my thoughts on Decepticoaster Universal Studios Beijing. What are your thoughts on this coaster? Do you prefer this or the Hulk? And if you have not ridden both, which do you think you'd prefer? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.